Hi, this is part 2 of the Sinemet video. So I was talking about my experience with Sinemet. Hi, so this is part 2 of the Sinemet video. And in the part 1 I was just talking a little bit about my experience with Sinemet. Sinemet is just one of the Parkinson's drugs that are prescribed to most people with Parkinson's. And I'm going to go into a little bit about the side effects of the drug. There are a lot of side effects, but I'm only going to talk about the ones that I've personally experienced that I can think of. Because sometimes there's side effects and they sort of come and go. But the ones I'm most affected by are the dyskinesia, and that's kind of like one of the biggest side effects that only generally affects younger people with Parkinson's, and those are like the excessive movements. So I don't think most people are aware that only 40% of the there are 40% of the population of Parkinson's people that don't have a tremor, but they still might shake, and that's because of the dyskinesia, which is a side effect of our medication. It's not a permanent kind of problem, so it kind of like might come on and then it might disappear, and it usually comes on because we can't control the dopamine level of the medicine, and so the medicine can cause excessive movements. So I definitely from time to time experience that, and usually when I experience that, it's because I might have had to take a little bit extra of the Sinemet to get through the activity that I'm doing. A good example of that would be my ballroom dancing. Sometimes I'm really go back to my slow movements, and I'm not, sometimes I go in and I'm not able to dance as well, so I might take a little bit extra of the Sinemet just to get me going. But when I do that, the side effect is that later on I usually get dyskinesia. I can also get that if I'm stressed out, excessively stressed, or if I missed a dose of medicine, or even if I don't take the dose at the correct time. Like, I'm pretty good at taking the dose when it's due, but once in a while I might like forget my medication, or I might not take it on time. And even if I take it like 15 minutes, after it's due, it can cause dyskinesia. And I'm finding that the longer I have Parkinson's, the more dyskinesia I get. And in the beginning it was really easy when I did have the dyskinesia for it to disappear, but now if I have an episode, it lasts longer. Some of the other things I've experienced are lightheadedness, so dizziness, and nausea. The dizziness can get really bad. Like one time I passed out, and it seemed to be happening a lot like when I initially took the medication. And so that's something that I'm aware of, and what I've been told to do is just like, if there's any kind of physical activity that makes me dizzy, to just stop doing that. So a lot of times I was getting dizzy when I was like bending from my waist down, so I kind of just try to avoid that. But I have noticed with the lightheadedness and the dizziness that it kind of comes and goes again. Like I might have 6 months where it's really, really bad, and then another 6 months that it's not bad. Nausea, that's another kind of side effect that comes and goes with me. And I don't know why it comes and goes again, but the nausea seems to happen when I take the medication. So what I do is that I try to eat something with the medication now, but I can't eat too much because the medication isn't effective with food in your stomach. So generally, to get rid of the nausea, I take like a cracker or toast works really well. that leads me to talk about some of the issues with food around the Sinemet. And one big issue is that Sinemet doesn't work when there's protein in your stomach. Or so what happens is that it just won't like do anything. So I do have to be careful what I eat. Also, it is really bad with protein. So most people on Sinemet really kind of restrict when they're eating protein. So what I do, and what most Parkinson's people do, is that they don't eat protein, or don't eat in general, an hour to an hour and a half before they take their medicine, and an hour to an hour and a half after. So I've seen kind of different time frames depending on where you find your information. For me, I wait an hour, so I don't eat anything an hour before or hour after. If I'm really hungry, I might have something like a light snack, like an apple or some toast, anything that really doesn't contain a high protein content. So as you can imagine, that kind of makes things really challenging. I'm really used to it now, but if you think about the fact that we have to use the Sinemet every, like for me, it's every 3 hours, there's not really a lot of flexibility as far as when to eat, but you do get kind of used to it. But I do sort of, and sometimes plan my days according to that. It does get kind of challenging when you're with other people, or you're like have some kind of social activity. Usually I just kind of keep that to myself and kind of work it out in my head when I'm gonna eat, and according to when I'm gonna take my pills. So another big problem with the Sinemet are what people call on and off periods. And what happens is that the medicine isn't guaranteed to work exactly when you want it to work, and it has all these factors that contribute to the effectiveness. Kind of like a big one is like the one I just discussed with the food and the protein. So sometimes you can have on and off periods where the medicine's not working, and at first you won't really notice a difference. Like if you're off, you really won't notice a difference, but as your Parkinson's progress, you could feel a big difference. I definitely feel a difference, although like it might not be as bad as other people. They're on and off. So what I feel is definitely what I call like a breakout pain, and that's like a pain all over, and I usually start having the pain like half an hour to an hour before my next dose of Sinemet is due. Also, another thing that I notice is that my mood kind of goes down, and so I have like low mood before my next dose is due. And also I get kind of like more quiet and more withdrawn. Other things that could happen are that my motion problems come back. So those are just some of the things that I experience on and off periods, but some people experience a lot more. Like some people actually like revert back to having their motion problems, so they might start shuffling, or they might start dragging their feet, and I do that sometimes with the on and off periods. But then you take your next dose and you kind of usually go back to how you were before, but that's kind of like dependent on you've taken the dose at the correct time. So, like I mentioned in the first video, I take 9 pills right now, and those are all Sinemet pills. I don't take any other supplementary Parkinson's pills.